Welcome back to Planet Underground's the Stakeholder Roundtable live from CGA's summer committee meetings in Park City, Utah. We have a live audience here as well as many watching on the LinkedIn live stream. Please submit any questions you have via the live stream. I am Jimmy Wang with BizMetrics LLC. I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves, starting with Matt here.
Thank you, Jimmy. My name is Matt Dragon. I'm with Penhall Technologies. Penhall is the largest concrete demolition company in the United States, but they do have a division that scans concrete with GPR, as well as does a lot of utility locating across the U.S.
Adam Zuchiri, Locating Dynamics. We do utility locator training certifications out of Rancho Cordova, California, all across the country, with 2 locations now, one in Rancho Cordova, California, and Waukesha, Wisconsin.
My name is Forrest Sim. I am the owner of Enhanced Scanning. We are a private utility locating company based out of Southern California. We do private utility locating, concrete scanning, and some other related services, mostly in SoCal, but also other places around the country. We're the largest company in the country named Enhanced Scanning.
That was good.
Scott Hattenberg, M&L Construction. We're a fiber optic, heavy civil, heavy commercial contractor, solar farms, things like that. So we're out of Spokane. Go Zags. Someday they'll win it all.
Thank you, everyone. So the topic of this session is there a misalignment of interests between contractors and 811 locators? The utility perspective is contractors pay nothing into the system and are, by definition, not our customers. The contractor perspective could be the utilities own the underground assets that we have to work around, right? And our downtime and delays are not valued by them. Do private locators and contractors like that help bridge this alignment of interest gap? So feel free, anyone, to start this discussion.
Yeah, so the way I see it is there's really 3 ways that we locate in the United States, right? There's the 811 world, or the formerly called one call, right? Then there's SUE, subsurface utility engineering, 2 very different worlds, right? 2 very different purposes. 811 exists because there's excavation activity occurring. Either the utility owners will come out, mark the facilities themselves, or hire a contractor to do that for them. SUE doesn't want to have anything to do with the 811 world. They want to be ahead of the game, as they put it, and go out there, map everything underground, have a high quality map and assign data qualities to it before excavation ever occurs. In a perfect world, there would be a layered approach, in my opinion, similar to what Colorado is doing, as well as I think Pennsylvania is doing something similar, involving SUE ahead of the excavation process as far as design, right? So there's currently no such thing as a design ticket. I know California is currently working on figuring that out. I don't think we're there just yet, but that's something that maybe we'll see in the near future. The private locate world, in my opinion, has always kind of been, I don't want to call it the redheaded stepchild in locating, but we're sort of in the middle as private locators. We're not 811, we're not SUE. And we're usually reminded of that if we're out there putting down yellow paint on the ground, chased maybe 8 blocks down the street, no experience of mine, but, by a gas utility worker saying, hey, who put this paint on the ground? That may or may not have happened 20 years ago.
Oh, that's definitely happened to my company.
So, then you talk about the APWA color code system. Is there a need to differentiate the private locating from the 811 paint? And absolutely there is. Well, even so far as SUE is currently trying to figure out how to have a different type of paint entirely, because they still have to put paint on the ground for certain things. So in Arizona, you can't even use pink paint like we tend to do for private locating, unless you're a surveyor. So it's kind of interesting. So misalignment of interests could go all kinds of different ways, but as far as that goes, what's the purpose of private locating? Well, for the contract world, 811, they generally stop at the meters, stop at the public right of way, right? There's this gray area for private locating where there isn't necessarily a standard that is set there just for private. As I mentioned before, we've got best practices for 811. We've got the SUE has, ASCE 3822, 7522 standards that apply to the SUE industry. And private locators kind of sit in the middle and go, well, this is a good idea. so is this, and make it up as we go along. That's just how it's currently done in the US, right? So, yeah, I'd say there's some misalignment there.
So I would say that when you look at the disconnect between 811 and a contractor, specifically to your question, I think it probably, if anything, benefits the private utility location company because, 811 stops in the public areas and is not supposed to go onto private property, right? And therefore they're not really enough. Like, I know it's the law, you have to call them, everything else, but more and more these contractors are hiring out private utility locators because 811 is not enough, and they recognize that. So I would say that if there is any kind of a separation or disconnect between 811 and the contractor, it actually kind of makes a home for the private utility locator to come in and, do their business. But to what you were saying, you kind of suggested that while there's a lot of private utility location companies out there, and wow, it's kind of the wild, wild west, and there's no national certifications. And, if you can go out and buy a GPR system and a pipe locator, abracadabra, you're in business, borrow a truck and you're all of a sudden a utility location company. So that's super challenging, but there is NOLCA, right?
Right.
The NOLCA competency tests that is I think very important and probably should exert itself into the industry more and more.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So recently I became NOLCA accredited after many years of going, well, yeah, maybe someday kind of a thing. But I really do see the national push for, I think they were talking about 1,800 credit hours by a NOLCA accredited trainer. And there's a handful of companies across the US that do that type of training. After 1,800 hours in the field, then the idea of a professional locator moniker, would sort of take effect. So I think that since there is no current, requirements for locating next to CFR 192 subpart N, which is only for oil and gas, essentially. If you're connecting to a utility structure that eventually is connected to a pipe that crosses a state line, you have to hold an OQ. That's something else that we do as well. But for the average person wanting to start their own locate company tomorrow, they could, without really any oversight. And to me, that's kind of scary,
Yeah. That's very scary.
Yeah.
But it's very much just market. I mean, it's market driven. I mean, okay, I was about to say no contractor. There are fewer and fewer contractors who just rely on the 811 system who are doing any work on private property, because I remember I gave a presentation to a large electrical contractor a number of years ago that I was explaining that we do private utility locating, and we can help them where 811 stops. And one of the guys somewhat boldly said, I didn't even know that was a thing. We just, on my projects, wherever 811 stops, we just kind of use that and just kind of guess where it's maybe heading onto the property. They didn't even know that private utility locating exists. And in terms of like a disconnect between 811 public locates and the contractors, I mean, it's always felt to me like what you were saying, Matt, that we have, through the laws that are created in the formation of an 811 one call type of system, we've created the need for this. I mean, this is just market driven, that contractors will say, well, this is insufficient, we've got to have something else in here. And we are very much filling a need, despite having gas company representatives chasing us down the street with whatever tools they may be weapons they may be wielding.
Well, the one I love is when they actually set on a commercial building, a huge transformer, and then they run 440 all the way back to the building, and then go, well, our meter's at the transformer.
Yeah.
So that's where you guys come in, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah, in Northern California, I've been seeing a lot more what they're calling secondary locates start to be required for projects. Different than typical 811 tickets, right, where it's single address tickets. But for projects, they're requiring now a secondary locate, which would be a third-party locator, a private locator, to come in and do some GPR, auxiliary investigation, RTK locating, creating some sort of deliverable that, as well as report, aside from the typical 811 process.
Well, and so private utility locating is just everything about it is market driven. It is where is there a need and how can we fill that need? Whereas it feels like the 811 system is just this is not market driven. This isn't what's the need, let's fill it. It's this is the service we provide and you will be happy with it. Submit. And
You didn't bang the table hard enough.
So if you think about the evolution of the industry and if you take into account all of the little bits and pieces that you hear about 811 as it's, facilitated across the United States and how they're behind in all their tickets and, there's a lot of pressure on locators to go out and do, very quick work and not very long on site and do as many tickets as they can. If you think about it, what really should happen is that private locators in a particular state should be approved to go out and fulfill an 811 ticket.
Yeah.
Where there is more than what 811 can accomplish needed. Like if it is a site that is a campus or something like that where it's mostly private, or even just that 440 line that's going to the building, very critical. Don't dig that up. Someone's going to get killed.
Sparky.
If you think about it, the evolution should be that private locators should become certified in filling 811 tickets, take some of the load off, but also operate as a private locator on that site.
So you carry the bonding then? Because that'd be the bonding and the insurance, because that's the question I would ask, is if you are working for, say, Comcast, and they can't get there to do the locate, so you get called up, who's going to be liable?
Excavators carry bonds, locators do not, in my understanding.
Yeah, locators never carry bonds, but we should carry professional liability insurance. I mean,
Yeah,
beyond
it
just-
should be. Yeah, you're exactly right. It shouldn't be just liability insurance. It should be professional.
it should be
liability.
professional
Now,
liability insurance.
I don't want to lose sight of this. You mentioned that private locators should be certified in running tickets. How many contract locators, how many 811 locators working for utility companies are certified in running tickets?
Well, what does certified mean?
They're following best
So-
practices that
so-
work by the CGA.
If a particular utility, let's say, Edison wants to say like, all right, we just can't meet all these tickets. Let's let a private utility locating company, let's open it up to them. They need to go through our internal training so that they're marking it the way that we want it to. Matt, don't disagree with me.
Forrest,
You didn't bang the
take you
table.
down.
But that
Blue Blazer Brawl.
but they could be certified through whatever internal process the utility owner has, with Edison or whatever the gas company or the telco company, so that they're marking to their standards and and do their tickets, whatever they need there. But man, it would take so much off of the
Contract locator, right?
off the contract locator. And then, I mean, it could be just like the last roundtable that was had here. This could be just a premium level service. Hey, we can get out there. We're going to try to be out there within 2 days. If you need it sooner, here's a list of some other guys who can come out there. By the way, they're market driven. They're going to use GPR and they're going to use a whole bunch of other tools
Right,
that we
there's a
don't.
fee.
And there's a
There's
fee.
a cost to that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if Scott's guys in the field, they have projects that they're managing all over the place, right? And they know, his superintendents know they've got to call 811, right? Check a box. Would you go outside of the contract locator and have a private locator fulfill this if they could do it sooner and they could do it also in the public right away as well as the private space?
How many
And would you
utility
pay for it?
companies would sign off on that? Because that's ultimately where that
Well,
hurdle
and
would
you'd
lie.
have
is
to
with the owner, right?
Sure. And you need to be able to do it to the standards that AT&T has or Comcast or whoever.
Above, above
At
and
least to
beyond.
that.
Yeah, as a
Sure.
third party, I've always said try to go above and beyond. But you're
Yeah.
right, minimum standards set forth by the utility owners themselves.
But the one of the huge limitations of bless the 811 system, bless contract locators. But one of the huge limitations there is that they have I'm going to get some hate on this.
Well, happy sandwich.
I'm glad he did it, not me.
There's going to be okay, let's say this. Most contract locators with whom I'm associated. Now that's easy. Most contract locators are just using a locate wand, right? And that's great. That's the bread and butter of
They're
utility
not even
locating.
hooking up direct half the time.
Right. And I've had so many contract
be.
locators come up to me and say, "How do you locate stuff without maps? How do you even know?" I'm thinking, this is just what we do. We just go out and find whatever's underground there. Anything abandoned in place,
It's very organic.
that's not theirs. It seems very not subpar. That's where the par is. It's working below our potential, right? As a private utility locator, I mean, we use ground penetrating radar. We use acoustic locating for finding plastic water lines. And if I want to get more jobs, if I want to do a better job than my competition, then I need to invest in the newest technologies and in the latest skills. And contract locating is stuck at wand.
Yeah.
And so if we want to reduce damages, like we talk so much about reducing damages by 50%, reducing damages by however much, we are stuck with using the same tools with a newer user interface that we've been using for decades.
So,
I think
so,
you hit-
so on that point, for the two panelists who offer private locating services, Matt and Forrest, who is your customer? Just like quickly, who's your customer? Like
Whoever
what-
makes the phone call.
Yeah, and typically,
calls them.
who is it? Is it contractors? Is it
Well, yeah, it's
engineers?
Usually
it's
contractors.
normally a contractor.
Okay.
It's normally like ML here.
Okay.
They pick up the phone and they say, hey, we've got to excavate this across this property. We don't know historically what's there. Nobody knows, or some people say they know, and we want to have a closer look at that because we don't want to have any hits.
So it's a contractor, right?
Every once in a while, it's a municipality, and
Right.
they tell me not to tell any of their coworkers, but
So-
usually contractors.
It's back to the topic at hand. Who is the customer of the contract locator, the 811 locator?
The CEO
The
of
utility
the big
owner.
utility company.
Yeah,
utility.
the utility company. Yeah.
It's not the
I remember
excavator.
where it comes from. It comes out of
Right.
maintenance.
So what I'm getting to is, Forrest, your point is, they're quote unquote stuck using, not fulfilling their full potential a lot. You're looking at that from the perspective of your typical customer,
Yeah.
which is a contractor, who is not the customer of the 811 locators, right? So
You're right.
from the
Should they be? But yes, you're right.
so back to the topic. So from the 811 locators perspective, they're fulfilling the needs of their customer, which is a utility. Their customer is not a contractor.
Sure. And
Is
the
that-
USSR
is that a
was fulfilling the
fundamental-
needs of their people when they were giving them bread every day, and they were living off of that. I'm going to get hate for that.
So to circle back on the disconnect, I think the biggest disconnect that we're dancing around currently, that I'm seeing anyways, the perspective of the contract locator. What incentive do they have to be any better than what they are currently? They don't really have incentive. There's really no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no line of progression. Who's that person? That person is the person that just graduated high school, no shade, just got a job at the utility company, is the lowest man on the totem pole, so to speak, right?
Not even at the utility company, at the locate company.
Well, I'm
'Cause there's a
speaking
big
from a utility
difference.
perspective,
Yeah.
but yes,
Yeah.
right? So, having been involved in that, right? I've been on both sides of that fence, right? So I've seen, what can happen. There's no incentive for these folks other than to go take a different job that is not locating, right?
Yeah.
They're held in that position for a year because there's a lot of turn and burn, especially for specific utility companies out there. And they just want to jump to the next thing and get that bigger paycheck. If you were talking about a locator, right, what is their level of income? What are they getting out of it? What's in it for me, right, is what they're thinking. Well, they're getting a pizza party for a good job, at the end of the day. What's their incentive? I think that implementing something like we're talking about, the NOLCA accreditation, helps them become a professional locator. I've worked with companies that are union and non-union. And a lot of locating companies out there are terrified of unions for various reasons. The biggest one is you got to pay people. That's why unions exist. Got to pay them a better wage, right? So
So throw this in the mix too. we're in an area where you only work about 9 months out of the year. So now all of a sudden you don't have any experience. I mean, you have these locators, these contract locators who it's just a summer job. It's not like the old school in-house guys where, and I keep bringing this up, those guys have been brought up through the system working for the utility. They have utility pride. They're going to retire from the utility. They have all that. Maybe they got injured. Maybe they said, you know what, I'm starting to get older and I want to retire. So they put half the stuff in. So they know where it's at. They know how it was put in. That's been the biggest thing that I've seen in my 35 years of doing this, is that progression over to the other locators. So how in the private locating world now, because you're not going to get back to that, how do we get that type of professional, what I see here, to come across on everyday locates?
So training, right? So to me, it's a mindset shift that has to occur with training and investing in the employees themselves, is what I see. You have to build up the team to want to be better, to want to do better, right? So how do you bridge the gap between both worlds? I see it as training, right? And yes, I'm a trainer. Of course, that's my, my mantra, but that's how you get there, is bridging that gap. Private locating, I started out in the survey side of things. We didn't have maps. We didn't even know what paint we're shooting. Make sure you shoot all the utilities. We look at each other and we go, what is that? What's that structure? Well, over time, right, getting into locating, now there's different things, right, that come into play.
I got something I want to ask you. Do you know what the EMR rating is for the largest, I'm not going to say the name, company, contract locating company in the U.S.?
I bet you do.
1.96. You believe that? I don't even know how they're allowed on our jobs at that point. Some of the other ones, 1.63. So something's happening there. These guys are, I don't know if they're going, I'm going to get hurt because that way I can get paid for another 6 months or whatever. But there's another issue that we see with these contract locating companies, and it's kind of making a lot of sense.
Well, what you're getting is cross-pollination. Company A loses the contract for poor performance, and the utility company goes with the next lowest bidder, which is the same people marking the same facilities in a different truck with a different shirt and a different colored locate wand.
Yeah.
Why did you point at me?
Well,
Why he pointed at
because
me?
you're the wand guy.
Why did you do that?
I was throwing you,
The wand thing.
wand.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the bad locators.
No,
and you're
no,
like,
no.
see, what if a bad locator comes up here? What is this?
No, not at all.
So
That means I'm a good locator.
Yeah, that's what it means.
So back to the alignment of interest. Do we know, who we have on this panel is contractor, a recipient of the 811 services. We have two private locators who get a lot of their work from the gaps in the current system, right? And we have a trainer who trains, locators, which is great. I don't see any utility companies or facility owners complaining about how the system is working.
They're getting paid based on the way the system is
So
working right now.
what I'm saying is the owners, the only stakeholder paying into the system, all of you guys kind of take money out of the system, which is fine. You're providing services or, whatever, right? But the only stakeholder paying into the system, and when the golden rule, right? Those who have the gold make the rules. They own the system. I don't see them complaining about how bad the system is or how they want to wholesale
Well,
change it.
it's operating at its minimum quality capacity.
So is it good enough for them
So-
right now?
So that's how they.
This is
that's
in the
how
barely good enough.
That's how they QA/QC. Well, we don't want to do this because that's obviously going to cost a lot more in training and equipment and whatnot. So if we always sort of run a deficit with our tickets and always sort of, keep everything the status quo and protect ourselves legally, and therefore our payout and investment into that contract locator is at a minimum.
Well, it's
Right.
budget driven, right? It's reactive. So everything's fine until it isn't. Then when it isn't, suddenly there's a new budget that didn't exist for training last year because now we have to get people better.
Frankly, I don't want all the contract locators that are servicing the 811 world to turn into private utility locators.
I don't think there's a risk of this
I
happening.
don't think that's going to happen.
No.
I mean, we definitely don't want. They perform a service. They bring attention to the need to go out and understand where underground utilities are, and then they leave it at that. They do it quickly. They do it cheaply, and I think
And then we're called in to
Yeah, and then
verify their
we're
marks.
called in to verify their marks.
Yeah.
And do the rest of the site for safety reasons, really.
Yeah.
Safety, I would love to believe that, but I think it's liability driven, right? Because then you could say, I've tried everything, right? We didn't just go off of this. We went above and beyond by hiring that third party locator. I see it. Yes, safety is why we locate. Safety is why we do what we do. I'm not saying that isn't true, but from a, like, why are you willing to spend that extra money? It's not out of the goodness of your heart, right?
Potato. I mean,
Right.
I mean, really, if you look at ultimately the utilities that installed all of this infrastructure underground, way back when, they should have probably captured it all digitally. And it should exist in a repository so people can go out with their own GNSS receiver and mark things out.
Have you ever looked at microfiche drawings?
But that has, that's not the thing. And that's why, you private utility locators are doing more and more mapping, capturing their results out in the field and creating a digital deliverable to the client such that you can take that digital deliverable, export, a shape file or a DXF and put it right into your design documents, your as-builts even.
So are you getting paid from the project owner or from the utility?
project owner.
Or,
Project owner.
so project owner.
Or the,
Yeah.
well, or the.
So
or the
why is the utility
contractor.
not paying for that? You would think that they'd love to see that.
I don't know. Let's find out where those guys live.
Silos.
Let's
I
go,
agree.
let's go make things happen.
It's all about silos.
Yeah.
You could be one utility company and this group doesn't talk to this group, doesn't talk to this group.
Yeah.
The hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing half the time. And I hate to say it, but like I said, it's not just because it's a good idea and because we think it's a great idea, because
Yeah.
the industry might think it's a good idea, doesn't mean it's gonna happen.
Well, okay, so let's go one level up. Now you've got the permitting agencies that are in there. Have you ever tried to give them a Trimble drawing of the development you did?
Who's they?
The permitting agency, whether it's the county, the city, whoever.
Oh,
You try to give them a Trimble, they go, no, we don't know what to do with it. And here you go, sub-inch information is gone. Now I know TopCon has a repository somewhere. I don't know where. It's for future, I guess. But you think about that. Why are they not demanding more of this? Why are they not saying, hey guys, we need to have this information?
It's not monetized yet.
Yeah.
All of it isn't. That piece is not monetized
Yeah.
yet. So, if I'm a design engineering firm and I've got civil engineers on staff, I've got surveyors on staff, their deliverable to that end asset owner, that the hospital that you just built, is going to be, a civil 3D and an Esri link where
Completely
they can see
incorrect.
everything, right?
Yeah.
Correct, right? I mean, I think that's the standard thing. So Forrest and I look at that and we're like, well, this is an opportunity for us to digitize our findings, give it to a contractor, and you can then use that however you want to use it into
Yeah.
your files and your deliverable.
And it's project based, but like you're saying, once that's happened and it's captured and it's handed off to person A, does it ever leave their inbox?
Yeah.
Right? Where does it go? We were talking at a different roundtable about the cycle of information. Is 811 the right repository for that information? Maybe, maybe not. As a third party that it may be out there currently, are they the better suited individual that these utility owners can kind of, pay into to have this information? Or can it go directly back to them? Because ultimately, do they have the budget for it? Do they have the manpower for it and mapping? I've seen it where, unfortunately, the mapping group seems to be cut earlier on than other different divisions whenever there needs to be budget cuts across a utility, which is unfortunate because they think they're good until they're not, right? So do we need maps to locate? No, we don't. We can go out there and make maps today. That's what we do, right?
So I think if you look at it from a 10,000-foot view and you say, how do we actually make it so infrastructure is not damaged and people's health and safety on that site is protected throughout the course of the job, right? That comes down to information sharing. That's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that's leaning on the shovel, watching that bucket, if he can look on his phone and say, shows on my phone that there's a 2-inch gas line there. that's weird. Maybe we should think about this, Bill, before we start.
Maybe he can
Scoop
grab
it
a
away.
locator because he's so cute and validate the marks. Maybe he can do a sweep and see if there's anything.
He should call a private utility locator.
should
Somebody
call a
knows
private
what
utility
yeah.
locator.
If we really want
That's
to
well
damage,
trained.
if we really want to damage prevention, wouldn't the excavator validate the marks before they drop the bucket? They're the most.
But they're not going to know if you don't have that data.
Yeah, the whole idea of not share, like openly sharing data, I think is asinine. Like I've talked to some, what are those guys called? I want to say union reps, not union reps.
Shelters.
No, utility owners,
Yeah.
reps from utility companies, and they say, "Whoa, we're not going to give you that. That's our information. We're not going to give that out."
Yeah.
To which I want to reply, like, "What are you thinking here, dude? Like, give that to everybody so they don't damage your stuff."
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to be
that
held
was too
liable.
much.
They don't want to be held liable, and that's really
wrong,
what it comes down to.
right?
Well, then hire a lawyer and say something like,
Exactly.
"I'm not liable," and put it on the
Yeah.
bottom of your map. Then nobody will sue you. That's how things work.
Well, maps are guidelines. You shouldn't try to remake the map. You should trust but verify.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just listening to what Forrest is saying. Maybe the system is from the perspective of the contractors can use a lot of improvement, but from the perspective of the utility owners who pay for the system is good enough. Is that what's going on here? It's good enough, and they're like, "Hey, why make
would bet
wholesale
they're
changes?"
Very satisfied with it.
I'm
They-
sure-
They send it out to bid, right? They're going to take,
Yeah.
the most competitive bid that meets all of the requirements, and they're going to fly with that probably, right?
I'm a small business owner, and so the term "good enough" is the first thing that you start thinking right before you go out of business. So I hate the term "good enough" and "sufficient." I don't want sufficient services or services that are good enough. I want my customers to be raving fans of whenever they hire enhanced scanning. This is the easy button. I want to hire that guy a ton, and
But
he
the
knows what I need.
excavators are not the customers of the utilities.
Right, but look, you can in one way you got to follow the money. Wherever the money leads, then that's going to show you the motivations. It's going to show you a lot of things. But in another way, forget the money. Just think about who's the real customer of the 811 contract locator is the excavator, is the guy who's dropping a bucket in the ground, even though he's not paying anything. He's the customer because he's receiving the service.
By definition, if you're not paying for something, you're not a customer.
Right, so
he's
I'm
the
saying-
recipient of the output of the system, but he's not the customer.
Sure. So if you want to talk about like strict definitions, that's absolutely correct. What I'm talking about is who's receiving the service, and that way who the customer is. The guy who receives my services is the customer of
Because he's paying you.
correct. So all right, let's not call him customer because that's not going to go anywhere. But the one who's receiving the service is the guy who's dropping a bucket in the ground, right? And so therefore that is a guy who needs to be we need to figure out what he needs, what he wants, and as a private locator, that's all I care about is what he wants. And I think that the 811 system
Right, because
Here's
care,
Scott, you talk.
no, because you care about what your customer thinks about your service.
Right, because
The utilities
I've got a company that's got to
the
grow.
utilities care about what their customers think about their service.
But
Scott is not their customer.
But think about this. I'm not their customer, but it's their infrastructure to protect. So going back in the day before we had one,
And is it being protected sufficiently right now from a P&L perspective?
Jemmy, you use the word sufficiently again.
I know. But
From
in
a
the original
P&L
day, back in the day, there was no one call, and so that's what started. Even our little IEUCC was a massive gas project that went into Spokane, and that got started because the AGC came in and said, "We can't do this. We're going to kill somebody." And whether it was sewer, whether it was water, whether it was existing utilities, all this stuff, and so that's where it got started, was to protect infrastructure. That is really the protection side of it. Even though I'm not the direct customer, that facility operator is still the owner of the infrastructure, and they should want to protect it.
But is it?
I don't know if that'll fly.
No, it flies. But the question, it's not a 0 or 1 thing, right? Is it being protected sufficiently enough right now from their, I said it again, Forrest, is it being protected enough right now
Those are
from their
synonyms.
perspective, from a P&L perspective? And you want it protected more, but they're like, hey, if we're past a point of diminishing returns, any additional dollars we throw into this thing, we get negative ROI. So I've done enough. If you don't like what you're getting, call Forrest or call Matt.
Well,
From a P&L perspective, it probably is. Hence,
Yeah.
these are viable businesses.
Yeah.
It's working.
and the other part of it is it's
Sufficiently.
the law.
Yeah.
Like you have to go out and do it. Like, would
Right.
you love to have a law that says, "Oh, call a private utility locator"?
Yeah, I'd
it's
love
the
that.
law.
Yeah,
Right?
specifically call enhanced scanning, but
Yeah.
potato potato.
Right. So enforcement was a topic that we were talking about recently. I think even the last roundtable you were involved in. If the law doesn't have teeth, what good is it? If you're getting slapped on the wrist, $1,000 fine every week, but because you're turning and burning, right? Does the fine go up? Well, yeah, it does. But is that enough to stop you from disobeying the law that you're already broken?
My brother's a firefighter. I was talking with him about how I'm coming here, firefighter for Salt Lake, and he said, what really bothers me about utility locating and just digging and the laws that are in place or fines or what he said. I don't know what's all involved there. I'm a firefighter, but he said we get these large like fiber projects going through an area like that. They put in a ton of fiber here in Salt Lake several years ago, and it was great. But they just built into their budget that they're going to be hitting a bunch of utilities, and they just did that instead
I
of
don't think you're giving contractors way too much gravitas there. I guarantee you, them contractors are not building any money.
Okay, well, whatever. Anyway, they just didn't care because it was such a huge project. They were like, we're just going to hit a bunch of utilities. We don't want to wait to have all this stuff located all this time, or every time we put a horizontal directional drill rig in the ground. So let's just do it, and we're going to hit stuff, and we're going to fix it, and it's going to be faster and ultimately better. And as a firefighter, he hated that because every time there was a gas line hit, something, they had to go out there in their full gear in the middle of
Unknown
July and
cross
sweating.
I can
Yeah.
think of at least
Yeah.
3 home explosions that was caused by that mentality.
Yeah, and then
We had a sewer contractor doing that, and our 811 people, our IUCC, they actually got together and they went after his bond, and it was a long-term sewer contractor, so he couldn't get bonding for 2 years. And when that's all you do, that's not good.
Yeah.
So that's where I think there is more, and I keep coming back to this idea of there has to be teeth in this to make it work right, because right now, on my end, I mean, I wasn't joking about that. I guarantee you they didn't figure in we're going to fix these. It just, they got into it and went, and then fixed it.
Let's just make it happen.
Yeah. So those are the things that I think we can see something in that 811 process and maybe start to get a little bit more of, maybe it's requiring
So who controls or who nominates commissioners on various public utilities commissions in various states, typically?
That's usually people with money.
Yeah. So usually the governor nominates them,
Yeah.
right?
But there's a
And-
lot of people with money that go into actually.
Right. And who
Submit to be
who are
nominated.
who are lobbyists or contributors to governors' campaigns? Right.
Yeah.
There are a lot of big utilities and facility owners.
Yeah. Well, and if you remember right too, Washington State, we had Bellingham. We had that big explosion there. 3 people died. It was horrific what all happened all the way through there. It started a group up that was going to be a watchdog group. What has happened to that watchdog group is exactly what Jeremy's saying, is now it's all filled with the utility people. It's not filled with the citizens who witnessed that horrific explosion.
Yeah, self-policing is okay, right? But who watches enforcement, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's great. I think we have to kind of wrap this up. So it sounds like there's general agreement that there's an alignment gap, right? The recipient of the product output of the system is typically a contractor, and the only stakeholder paying into the system are the facility owners, right? But the contractors are not the customers of the facility owner. They receive the output. And that's where, Forrest and Matt's companies kind of, and other private locators and companies come in to fill in the gaps. So is there a way to maybe align those interests more, or is it just optionally recipient, the contractors can pay for these premium services?
Where's the, where's the catalyst for feeling like you need to pay someone to come in and do it? Right? What's that driving catalyst? Usually it's something has happened on site and suddenly you need to get out there and do a private locate, or maybe something happened before you didn't want to have happen again. What have you guys seen as far as the catalysts for incidents driving private locating?
Okay, so Scott, I have, so I'm a private locator. I use lots of different tools to find stuff underground. From my perspective, I think that that's valuable. Hence, I put money into getting the equipment, the training, and everything else necessary. From your perspective, do you care if somebody's coming to your site with, if you had company A and company B, company A had just a wand, company B had a number of different tools, would that be a driver for you to call company A or company B?
So we
All other
actually
things equal.
we have a job right now, or we actually just pulled off because they had, it's an HOA, has pressure sewer, gravity sewer, water and irrigation, all in plastic. Nobody knows where it's at, right next to Lake Ponderay, like literally right next to the lake. So you know what that is to us, right? The problem is that really should be paid for by the project owner. And that's where it needs to come in. And that's what we're working with them on. But we had brought in GPR, couldn't find anything. It's clay, hard clay.
Right by the lake.
Yep, right by the lake. So we could not find anything. And after our third hit, we went, we're done. We're out of here. So that's been my experience with a lot of our private locators, is we're not getting the service we would love. I mean, it sounds like talking to you. You're awesome. I don't know about him, but it sounds like you are.
Yeah, well, I do work.
I'm awesome too.
I do work in Washington too. So just let me know.
And actually, I might
So do
bring
we.
that up
Forrest.
because
Matt.
So do I.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to be involved.
But I mean, so you asked the question. I mean, it seems like a driver for me, from my perspective, and given I'm a private locator, it seems like the more competency, the more tools that I have at my disposal, there are situations where lines are simply unfindable, and that is a thing. And any honest contract or private locator will admit that. But in the vast majority of on the vast majority of sites that we go to, we are using more than just our wand. We are using multiple pieces of equipment and skills that we've learned
Different
over
technologies as well. I mean, if
Yeah,
you find the
lots of
same
stuff.
thing with two different technologies, you just built in a redundancy to the investigation on site, right? So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, what really should have happened is all of that should have been located ahead of time, right? And then probably potholed to confirm any kind of data that they were getting off of anything. And then you given a map and said, hey, quote to this map, this is the real as-built of where all these utilities are. Think how more efficient you could quote something and be probably really dead nuts with your numbers to go and do that project. And that's where the Sioux world comes in that they're going to find that line. Or else they're not going to sign off on it.
So it's interesting. We talk about Sioux, but Sioux can't exist without private locators, right?
Exactly.
But private locating can exist without an engineer. Just throwing that out there. But we can't assign quality levels. So technological approach as far as the process goes, right? If you can get ahead of it, locate and map everything you can, then plan around that, design, and then start excavating with the one call process as part of the chain. That's really the only way we're going to minimize damages as the United States of America.
Yeah.
They do things differently around the country, but around the world, but this country does stuff different, right? Technology, right? EM, GPR, acoustic, and then there's the mapping component, RTK locators. What do you guys do if GPR doesn't work? You guys throwing acoustic at the problem, right?
See, I completely forgot about that. And then when you brought that up, I went, oh, that's right. There is something that can be done to find that.
Well, it's not your job. Your job is to get projects and build stuff.
Yeah.
Our job is to stay on top of what's the latest and greatest in the industry and then go and implement that on your site.
Yeah.
And Matt, you bring something up, using at least a couple technologies. And I'm not a geophysicist. I want to say this into all the cameras.
We're shocked.
I'm not a geophysicist. Okay. But I have talked to a couple of geophysicists before, and from what I understand from geophysically people, they love to use at least a couple of technologies to verify, at least 2 technologies to verify their findings. And that's what I've taught my guys, is that you use as many technologies as possible to find a thing, so that the chance of you having a
It's like
false positive
Math.
goes
you
way
do
down.
it one way, you can reverse the whole process. and do
Yeah,
it
I mean,
another
I don't
way.
know anything about
I'm
math
not
or
a
numbers,
mathematician,
but
like
yeah,
you're not a geophysicist.
or a mathematician. So you might be that.
And on that note, we'll have to end this amazing session.
I kind of went
And
sideways.
we're back tomorrow at 9 a.m. for those watching live stream, 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And I want to thank the panelists. Can we get a quick hand for them? Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone watching on the live stream.
I was gonna say that's the most fun I think I've ever seen at a round table. No offense.
There you go, Scott.
Look at that. I get
We
the
can
first
take
one.
care